Hey, so Brother Wright asked me to go over the Joseph Papers project with you guys as I worked with him for a little bit as an intern. And so it's actually received several endorsements from the Brethren and has actually been called the single most significant historical project of our generation. Also, I'm going to go in pretty fast here as a side note. So if you want more information, if you want to read these quotes, just pause the screen because I'm just going to hit the main points. Also, sorry about this weird little green line here. So the Brethren have also asked that we become teachers as well as the rest of us become familiar with the website. And this has been universally praised by the academic Mormon and non-Mormon community. The Joseph Smith paper is a few reasons why you should care. The first few deal with transparency, and then the fourth in replacing the history of the church that we use. So some information as to his origins is always reviewed by at least one member of the Quorum of the 12, every volume, every word. So I asked one of my coworkers how he was doing one day. He said, actually not very good. I just got reamed out by Elder Renlund in my office. Elder Renlund apparently disagreed not even with the content, with the word choice of one of his footnotes. So if you know that if the Brethren are willing to go down to the church history library to ream out the members of the Joseph Papers about word choice in their footnotes, then you know this is being viewed pretty closely by the Brethren. So first, we have to deal with advanced history or controversial history in the information age. That's why this is important. So there used to be a debate as to whether the church should do this directly or just let the scholars do it. With the advent of the internet, this debate's pretty much over. So we also need to respond to claims that the church whitewashed our history. Now, it depends on your definition, but if your definition is that at least some members of the general public don't know some controversial aspects of their own history, then the church realized that, yeah, maybe there is some validity to the claims that we, quote, whitewashed our version of our history. So that's incredibly important to them now. So they address that by total transparency, making everything available. Obviously, things like sacred temple material, I assume is kept sacred, but everything is made available. Letters, journals, everything, everything germane to Joseph Smith in his life is made available online. Now, no punches are pulled. So if Joseph Smith doesn't come out particularly positive or in a very good light in some source, it is always published in full anyways. If it is particularly controversial, then you might have like a scholar who's been handpicked by the Brethren who knows the anti-Mormon literature, knows the academic literature, knows the faithful scholar literature. They've been handpicked to give those information, those texts some context. And my boss actually got on my case once for making fun of an anti-Mormon source. He's just like, hey, we just go wherever the evidence leads. But again, these people have been handpicked by their brethren to do so in an honest way. Because of that, there are a vast array of subjects that people just really can't say intelligently anymore. Oh, well, the church didn't tell me that. Well, I mean, it doesn't stop them from saying it, but how can you say that when thousands of documents, thousands of primary sources about Joseph Smith's polygamy or some other subjects have been published online by the church? So why would we do that when we know that the anti-Mormons are going to quote it? Well, our mindset is that the true Joseph Smith, once revealed, will always, always, always come out on top as a true prophet of God. The holographs, meaning the actual text that the saints actually wrote on, are also published, just to show that we haven't tampered with the text. Now, whenever you hear Joseph Smith quoted, say, in sacrament meeting, or even in scholarly literature up to about 10 years ago, this is what they're quoting, the history of the church. You look in the headings of your Doctrine and Covenants, you'll see like HC. Now, but there are some problems with this history, which is another reasons why we need the Joseph Smith papers. So to get down to it, you have the minutes and journals. The primary sources are here. Then they're somewhat edited into this 1850s history. That is heavily edited by B.H. Roberts, according to standard methodology for his time, into this 1902 history of the church by B.H. Roberts, made by B.H. Roberts and his team. And it's this that, again, you see quoted, this 1902 history that virtually all of our quotes from Joseph Smith come from. And some of those have problems. So we want to get rid of all his editing and take scholars and the rest of us back to these original minutes and journals. So there's a pecking order to the type of source you'll see online, and here's like kind of a cheat sheet to that. You'll understand what blue stripe means here in a little bit, or a red stripe or whatever. Each source has its own caveats, its own pros and cons. So here's, again, a quick cheat sheet to look at that. So how you can use the website. So Here's what I meant by like blue stripe. You can look it up by source type in the document series. They got letters and journals, things like that. Also, you can look up the original manuscripts to our scriptures. That's pretty cool. You can also look at the most visited things, like this earliest account of the first vision. It's not at the appropriate price. You can look at the primary sources by topic, lesson, etc. So, and also the latest and greatest is always down here of what's coming out, like the Council of 50 Minutes, where the saints, the early brethren, talked about the role of government in our lives and the Constitution. A lot of their views may actually surprise you. It's incredibly fascinating to go over. And in dealing with like some editing here, so you'll see like this. It's always worth searching a few times to see if you can't find a journal source. So, for instance, Joe Smith here is talking about the Battle of Gog and Magog in this original journal source. Now, that is quoted in the history of the church, and they added this weird bit about not only us worshiping, but us fighting in Jerusalem. Now, that could be from someone who heard it from Joe Smith himself, but we just don't know where it came from, so we have to be suspicious of that. So if this is what you search, this fighting in Jerusalem, to find a source, then it might be worth a couple searches just to make sure that if you can, you find those original minutes. Like something that's been incredibly useful in my life is if your Facebook feed is like mine, then you have been hearing a lot about whether we should vote for good people or the lesser of two evils, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you think this is relevant to us now, maybe you don't, but either way, I find that the brethren were super actually passionate about this subject, and so I just typed in "vote good men" in my search bar, and this lovely source came up. So whether you think that's relevant today or not, knowing what they thought is, I think, hugely relevant to my life. Also, if you only want to find the good stuff here, you want to find the minutes and journals, you can refine your search that way. And real quick, as we conclude here, the Joe Smith Papers is always behind. So if you're interested in helping, you can email me, maybe or maybe not. We'll have something that you might be able to help with. The ways that this can bless your life. First, you can look up events like the First Vision. Second, you can check quotes to see if what you heard is an actual quote or if it's just hearsay in the original sources. You can look up those for yourself. You want controversial information for yourself and flip through a scholar and find out what early brethren, like we talked about, thought about so many different types of topics, virtually almost everything you can think of. Also, my favorite, you can get to know the real prophet Joseph Smith through his own words and deeds and primary sources. And it's my experience that as you get to know the real prophet Joseph Smith, as prophets always do, he will always, always, always point you towards the Savior. And that is why the Joseph Smith Papers can be and will be and should be incredibly important to your life.